Today we're going to split cells in Google Sheets. We have a data set here that we used the coefficient add-on to pull in the data. And we want to go through and split some of this data up into different cells. So for example, there's two question names into first and last. And we're going to look at 4 ways to do this, and we're going to look at different scenarios in which you might need to split data. So we're going to go ahead and make ourselves a new column here. We're going to go ahead and select our column of data, and then go here and split text to columns. Now you'll see we have a selection here, and it asks us what we want to separate based on. And so here we just have a space. We can select space, and you can see it splits it just like that. Let's go ahead and undo this, and let's look at a different way we can split this. We can use the split formula. We can open the split formula. You can look at what the parameters are. So first is the text we're going to split, which will be this. And then we can set what's called the delimiter, just like the split. And so here we're going to use a space. Now one thing you'll notice, when you're trying to split data, you will need more columns to put that data into. So once we add additional column, we can now split this data. Drag this down, and we split the data. The one thing you notice is this is different than when we just did this and used the menu function, because that did it in place, whereas the split actually does it in separate columns. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at is just a simple upgrade to our split formula, and we are going to add array formula around our split. And then instead of F3, we're going to go ahead and carry that down to the bottom. You can specify the bottom reference, or you can leave it open-ended. And see, it goes like that. All right, so let's go ahead and look at if we have a little more data. So here we have the subject, and we have multiple columns here. So let's go ahead and grab some of this data. So here we can do the same thing, split, empty space. You can see here we don't have enough columns, so we keep adding columns until we get that down. Now we can drag down. You can see some of these we still don't have enough columns on there, and so if we keep adding more columns, eventually we'll have enough to fit all the data. It says one thing to keep in mind as you're using these formulas, to make sure you have enough empty space to get that all to fit. So next, let's look at splitting a date and timestamp over here. We're going to use our array formula, split, and an empty space. You see now it splits into date and time. You notice this format looks a little funny. And so what it's doing is actually, this would be a 0. And so date of 0 and then the time. And so if we just do the time, we can perhaps add this. You can see now that we're actually adding our time and we are splitting correctly. And the same thing with this, it's also showing a 0 time. Let's look at another scenario here. We want to split this assignee name, but we have some extra data in there that we do not want to include. And so one way we can do this is we can wrap our split formula inside of a query. And so let's just go ahead and build this from the beginning. Space, let's go ahead and add an extra column there. If we drag this down, I'm not gonna have enough for this because we need another one there. All right, so let's go ahead and change this to an array formula. Change this H3 to our full reference. It's running our room because it wants to go down. All right, now we're filling the whole thing with our data, but we only want the first 2 columns. And so what we can do here is use a simple query formula, and we can select column 1 and column 2. And that gives us the first 2 columns without the rest. All right, so the final thing to keep in mind as you go through and do this, you will want to validate some of your data because sometimes your data may show up in a different format and this won't be splitting properly. Let's say if we get rid of the space, then it's just showing up like that. So you will want to validate your data to make sure it's showing up in the correct format and that you have the correct delimiters in your data. You can use things like find replace to remove unnecessary or unneeded delimiters that are in the data and to standardize them correctly. All right, that's it for today. Don't forget, if you have not installed Coefficient, to install it now from the add-on store. And then tune back again soon for more videos.